Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to cilinixfxcapital. Welcome to the channel if you're new, and in this video we're going to be talking about the crypto markets. But to talk about the crypto markets, obviously we'll talk about everything that influences the crypto markets as well. I'll try to keep the video short and concise. The US market is opening in about 9 minutes, so this video will probably be uploaded just after that. That's going to be incredibly volatile, but in this video I'll try to prepare you best for what's going on, all right? So we'll talk about Bitcoin specifically, we'll talk about XRP specifically, because I know a lot of you are interested in that. But first we have to talk about the fundamentals. So today has been very volatile, it's opened very, very bearish, especially when the Asian markets or the Asian financial markets opened much, much weaker. Since then, Bitcoin has recovered a bit, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. We'll have a look at what's going on here and what the different possibilities are, or where we can go, and some important levels. And I'm trying to, yeah, that's what I want. So we'll talk about that in a moment. First of all, fundamentals, because there's a lot going on. First of all, what's actually bullish is that Michael Saylor did not buy Bitcoin last week, all right? And I've talked about this before, that would actually be bullish. So that has actually happened. I mean, I'm not sure if I can actually still see this right here, but this is news from Walter Bloomberg, which is always very, very good. Yeah, so this is during the first quarter, but ultimately they acquired 0 Bitcoin during last week, which is very bullish because, like I said, or like we've talked about before, Bitcoin actually held up relatively well last week. So that means that someone or some entity was buying, all right? And a lot of people have said like, oh, the Bitcoin was just lagging. We just fell down later than the stock markets. And I don't think that's true. I mean, if you take a look at Bitcoin right now, it's basically at the same levels as it was during the crash of March the 11th. And if you take a look at the stock market, the S&P 500 is actually down 8.5%, which is massive for the S&P 500 since that same point. All right, so that means that crypto, at least over the last month, has still outperformed the stock market by a wide margin. So that's still bullish. Now, obviously, right now we are bearish, at least on the short terms, but that's something to keep in mind. Then two other things that are most important for today as well. First of all, we have a Federal Reserve meeting, as you can see right here, later today, 11:30 a.m. I think that is that's UTC -4. Just for your reference. They will have a closed meeting on the review and determination by the Board of Governors, the Federal Reserve, of the advance and discount rates to be charged by the Federal Reserve banks. If they're going to emergency cut the rates, that's going to be incredibly bullish, but this is something like speculation, all right? There are some arguments to be made why they would actually go for an emergency cut, and that would be incredibly bullish. But for now, you should just know that that's happening today. Could be major, but if they're not going to cut rates, and the market is going to price that in, which I don't think has happened yet, by the way, then it could also be incredibly bearish. So you should just know that it's going on and the different outcomes. And then outside of that, we've also today, which obviously matters, we've had some updates regarding the tariffs. The EU has said that they are ready to negotiate with the US on tariffs. That's relatively bullish. That's also why I think ultimately equities have calmed down a bit and they're bouncing, although it's very, very minor. And we also just had some confirmations that these tariffs will most likely stay in place, or at least that's the base case. But all right, so that's all the news for now. The US market is opening in about 5 minutes. So what's going to happen? Now, first of all, it's going to be volatile, all right? And what's going to happen is going to depend on fundamentals. It's going to depend on how the S&P 500 is going to open, which at this point of time is trading about a couple of percentage points lower than the close on Friday, 3%. But the opening for the S&P 500 is going to depend on, first of all, how will this whole trade war and tariffs situation develop? Second of all, will we actually get rate cuts, yes or no? If yes, price will go up. If no, depending on the price action in the next hour, but price will most likely go down. And then just in general, the sentiment in the US, which I cannot predict. All right, so if we see a strong recovery from this with volume, that's going to be incredibly important. Then this was most likely the bottom for Bitcoin. But for now, due to the uncertainty in the markets, when we zoom in on Bitcoin here and when we focus down on Bitcoin, so what Bitcoin is going to do is going to depend on the equity markets. But if I would have to give you my most likely scenario here for Bitcoin, I would say assume that we're going to drop down lower. All right, that's the same as what I said yesterday. Yesterday it worked out well. The two most important levels for Bitcoin right now, or at least the most important level I'm looking at for a potential recovery, would be 78,500. All right, if we're going to be able to reclaim that level, which is a Fibonacci level, that's the open here, that's the weekly open. That's the 50 EMA right here, and just in general an important level, the value area high today as well. If we're going to be able to reclaim that with volume, we can see recovery into 81,000 and potentially a reclaim depending on the fundamentals. And then the other key level for Bitcoin is going to be 76,000. If we break down below that and we have a negative equities opening, we're going to drop down into that main support between 72 and 69,000. Those are the two scenarios. Those are the most important levels to watch. Like I said, given my stance right now, which is a little bit conservative and trying to be safe, I would assume that we're going to do this. And if you want to know where I'm buying Bitcoin, consider joining the Signal group, because we have layered some bits in here. I think ultimately this is an amazing support to buy Bitcoin spot, but like I said, more on that in the Signal group if you're interested in that. I mean, these are not necessarily the times that you have to trade. And then when we're talking about XRP right here, it's incredibly correlated, of course, to Bitcoin. So far, XRP looks good. We were able to reclaim 1.75. 1.75 is by far the most important level. If 1.75 is going to be able to hold as support for XRP, we're most likely going to retest $2 at least. If we will drop down below that again in the next hour, most likely, we're going to revisit the week low right here at 1.6 and most likely going to drop down lower as well. Now talking about altcoins, I don't think makes too much sense right now. Most of the altcoins right now are just following the market. Open Campus is actually pretty strong right here, so that might be interesting, but that is that's definitely a risk you're taking if you're going to trade coins like that during these times. So again, like I said in the last couple of days, be safe. Most important levels for Bitcoin are 78,300 and 76,000. Most important events are going to be the Federal Reserve closed meeting and the development in general of this whole tariffs and trade war situation. That's it for now. I might be back with a new update later today, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, take care. Thank you all for watching, and bye.